let's open up our file here. Desktop, Revit, or no, not Revit, project. We want wireless switch. Open that up. Oh, look. Oh no, it's only 12 times. I've only saved 12 times this whole process. Seems like not enough. And let me open up. There we go. All right. So I've got my drawings over here. Here we go. All right. So let's see. Let's talk about the sections first, how we draw a section and how we do enlarged plans and callouts, all right, just to remind you. Then we will talk about dimensions, a little bit of annotation, and the cover sheet. That'll kind of end the topic. All right, so I'm going to go to my main level, and I do already have some sections created, so I'm just going to delete those, and we will recreate those. Okay. Okay, so creating sections is probably one of the easiest things we can do in Revit. If you go to the View menu, we have the Section tool right here, and this is also located on the Quick Access menu, right? So I click on Section. I choose where I want my section to be located. Now, choosing, creating a section and then kind of choosing where you want it located, right, are kind of two different topics. When you're creating a section, you want to essentially be able to choose kind of the most conditions possible, right? And what I mean by that is what things are what is the city going to want to see in your set of drawings, and how can you best capture that with your building section, right? So things the city are going to want to see usually, where your stairs in the project, what does your window condition look like, what does your door condition look like, where does your floor slabs, where do they kind of fall in the scheme of things, right? So when I'm creating a building section, I try and think about, what things need to be illustrated, what does the city want to see. I don't, as much as I'd like to, I don't just pull the easiest building section, right, to make my life easy. I try and actually capture something that's going to be helpful, right? So, I'm going to do a longitudinal section and a transverse section, right, or longitudinal this way, I guess, and transverse section this direction. And I'm going to try and capture, those things I was talking about, right? So one thing the city is always very curious about is the stairs, right? How are the stairs working? Where are they in the project? How do they interact with your floor slabs? Okay, all that good stuff. So immediately I think this would probably be a pretty good section because I would hit the stairs there, right? If I had maybe like a, like a door here, maybe there's a door right there. Okay, I might grab this building section and maybe pull it through the door. So I'm capturing the exterior wall and interior wall. I'm grabbing a door condition, a stair condition over here, right? So again, I'm just looking here trying to find the best condition. I'm going to keep it here for now though. Okay. So I've created my first section. I also want to do a secondary section in the other direction. And again, I really feel like, kind of capturing the stairs is always a great idea if you can. So here's my other section, and I'll click it and generate it this way. Click, click. There's my section. I'm going to move it just a tiny bit. So it goes through that door. It hits both stairs, right? I've got a lot of good stuff there. When I click on my section, I have this blue dashed line, right, that extends past it. That blue line shows me kind of my field of vision for that section, right? So it tells me that, I click on it, it tells me that I'm going to be able to see everything from this point where this section is created all the way through the building to the back wall, past the building to here. If I don't want to see all the way out to the outside of the building, or there's something I don't want to capture, I can grab this and drag it in, right? I can also bring this kind of in and out. And you notice I don't really affect where the marker is, the section marker is, but I can kind of customize where that field of vision happens, right? Like if I only want my section to go from here to there, I could drag it in a little bit. The section marker shows what direction I'm looking. So this one shows me I'm looking to the right here. Okay. I can flip it using this grip click, and I can be looking to the left. But we're going to look that direction. Okay. When I create a section, another little group over here is created called sections. Click, click. There is my building section, right? And you know, this is kind of, again, another magical thing about Revit. The building sections are generated so easily for us, right? In AutoCAD, when you draw a building section, it's a lot of work. It's very intensive. You have a lot of lines to draw. You have to coordinate drawings that are not part of the drawing you're in. So there's a lot of coordination. I'm going to drag my crop region in, right? We see we have a crop region. Looks pretty good. I'm going to turn my crop region off. I'm going to change maybe my coarseness level to a medium so that I can see where all of my wall systems happen, right? But in general, this is a pretty good basic wall section, right? I'm not going to ask you to generate more than this because I think for where we're at, right, this is pretty good. I can drag my building section head down a little bit so that it's sort of in line with some of these other objects, right? Looks pretty good. You're going to probably, you know, in our project we have a few levels, but in a professional project you'll probably have 15 or 20 levels on the side. You know, in this sectional view, things that I want to show with these vertical datum, I want to show where the top of the wall is here, or the roof. I want to show where level 2 is. I want to show where the main level floor is. And if there's a basement, I want to show the main level floor, right? I don't really want to call out things like top and bottom of footing, height in view, elements. Right, we'll leave that to our structural engineer to call out those heights. I probably don't, well, the vestibule roof, that's kind of important. But, you know, I'm just kind of showing the basic systems. An overall building section is meant to define kind of the most basic definition of a building project, right? So I see the roof, the floors, that's about it here, okay? But what I like about this is that I do see, you know, some things in the background. I see how these walls interact. I see the floor, right? I see the stairs and how that works. So I feel like I'm pretty successful with this building section. I have these sheets already created, and I can take my building section, click, drag it over, let go, click, drop it on there, and there's my building section. Okay. I'm going to close out of this and go back to my section. As much as I don't like it, I think I've somewhat decided that this is going to have to be an 1/8 inch section to make it fit on the page better. You notice the scale of it changed, right? You notice that some of my annotation is now overlapping my building. So I'm going to have to rearrange my annotation a tiny bit to make it look the way it should, right? Everything looks pretty good. I look back on my sheet again. There it is. Okay. All right. I have a secondary building section I need to worry about, right? I have section number 2. Click, click. Okay. I very much want this to look similar to section number 1. So I'm going to change my level of coarseness to medium so I can see all of the wall detail. I'm going to change the scale to an 1/8 inch. There we go. I'm going to turn my crop region off here. And I'm going to somewhat arrange my annotation so that it works. Okay. What I don't like about either of these building sections is the fact that I don't really see my vestibule in any of them, right? I think the vestibule is a pretty important part of this. I think I'm going to move this first building section back a little bit so I do get a sense of where that vestibule is, and then I see the stairs and kind of the background of that, right? Oop, what am I doing? There we go. Much better. Okay, so now I can see my little vestibule there. Okay. I can change, I can hide some of these hide in view elements. There we go. Okay. And we've got this guy here. That looks pretty good. All right. What I don't like about this is that my annotation here is overlapping, so I'm going to click on this grid bubble and click and sort of organize them so we can see everything. Okay. Again, I think our building sections are great to this level, right? As you move more advanced into Revit, you'll have some more things to do with this. But for now, I think this is probably as far as we're going to get. But you do know how to generate a building section, okay? One thing I want to, yep.
What was the difference between black and blue data points?
The black data markers have a floor plan associated with them, and the blue ones have a floor plan associated with them. The black ones do not. So the black ones are just a datum to measure to and use to define top and bottom constraints, and the blue ones are for floor plans. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So one thing I want to remind you about views like this, right, is that there is still all of the inherent information in a section view that you have in a floor plan view, right? This is just a horizontal cut of my building or a vertical cut as opposed to a horizontal cut, okay? So if you've defined things like rooms in your floor plan view, your rooms will be defined and show up in your sectional view, okay? So I want to remind you, if I go to architecture and I go to tag room, right? And this is if I have a room already created in my floor plan. I can click on tag room and they show up here, and I can click and I can tag rooms in this area, right? Nice, right? Now that applies to any situation, right? So if I have a floor plan, if I have a section like this, if I have a wall section or a detail, if there's a room that is associated with a floor plan that is associated with your detail or section or whatever, you can still add this information in, okay? You don't have to redefine it, meaning I don't have to come in here and say, create well, it won't let me anyway, but in other instances, I don't have to create a new room, I just have to tag that room. All right, so this looks pretty good. I'm gonna drag this onto my sheet here, section number 2, right? I hover here and they somewhat line up, click, and I've got my 2 building sections. I can click and engage this viewport, and I can choose tag room, and I can tag some of these rooms in here, right? My custodial tag is a little bit big for that little tiny room, so I feel like it's kind of obscuring some of the information that I need. So I'm going to click on my room tag and come up here and click on leader. And I can drag this tag over to the side and it will point to that room. You see that?
Aren't you going to do quarter inch?
Eighth. Yeah, we were going to do quarter, but I think it's just too big for the sheet, unless we bump the sheet size up. Okay. Click, and I'm out. Look pretty good. Oh, they are not, the titles were lined up, but these drawings are not actually. I'm going to grab this and there we go. Click, line them up. Oop, there we go. Looks good. All right, so I have my building sections. They look pretty good. I am going to go back to one, and I talk about you'll hear things like create a call out on your building section, or create a detail from your building section, or create a wall section, or create some type of call out. And I want to remind you how to do that on these drawings. A detail or a call out is essentially a zoomed in view of a specific area on a drawing, right? So for example, this overall building section shows kind of the general definition of the project, but maybe we need to know a little bit more about how this thing is built. So we need to zoom into a specific area and be able to add a little more detail, okay? So I'm going to go over to view here, and I'm going to remember call out is right here, and I can use the call out option or the tool in floor plan and elevation, whatever I want to use it in, section, detail. I click on rectangle call out, okay, and anything essentially that I enclose in this call out will become a separate drawing that I can then manipulate, separate from this building section, right? One thing I want to show you here, right, this is saying section, building section. I likely want to change this to a detail view. I guess or maybe I'll do a wall section. We'll choose wall section. And what this does is this will allow whatever call out I create to be sorted into this category and not be included in sections, right? Not a big deal, doesn't really matter, but it does keep some organization. So I click, I drag this over what I want to show, click again, and I have just created a wall section. Okay, there's my wall section. I can click on it. I can, using the grips, grab this little piece of annotation, the little bubble marker, and I can, put it over there. But essentially what I've done is I've created a call out on my building section. And this is called a wall section. And the wall section is going to be bigger and larger so that more detail can be shown in it, right? Than the overall building section. I click. There it is. This one's at 1/4 inch. But if I wanted to, well, it's 1/4 inch, which is, half the scale of the 1/8 inch. But if I wanted to, I could even bump it up to, 1/2 inch. And it's even larger, right? But we see that that call out, right, which is defined as a dashed line on our overall building section, our crop region essentially shows that within the drawing itself, okay? All right, so this wall section, I'm going to turn off the crop region, and let me just show you what this looks like on, maybe I'm going to move these a little bit, and we'll put the wall section next to them so you can see how different they look, or what the scale does. Because when I look at the screen, it doesn't look a whole lot different, right? When I look at this screen, I'm like, well, it's the same size as the other one. What's the big deal, right? But if I go to my sheet, I can grab that section call out, drag it over, and you can see it's a lot bigger, right? So there's going to be a lot more opportunity to add annotation and add detail and different things like that to this drawing than you would to this drawing, right? This is a little big, so I'm going to click. Maybe I'll change it to 1/4 inch scale. Click. It's still double the size of that one, right? But still kind of tiny. Anyway. All right, so there's a wall section, okay? There we go. Now, if I go to my wall section, number one, I don't want it called section 1 call out 1, right? I can right click on it, I can choose rename, and I can call this wall section 1, or whatever you want to call it. Now I can create a call out on my wall section, right? So on my overall building section, right here, I'm going to see a general overall view, and this is likely the level of annotation you would see on a building section, okay? I zoom into my wall section, click, and I see more definition. I'm going to have more notes over here. I'm going to show wall types and other annotations. So I'm going to have more annotation on this drawing than I would on the other drawing, right? So it steps up a level in detail. And then I can create a detail, which then takes it to the next level where I have even more detail, right? And I show more information on that detail than I would the building section, right? So it's kind of like overall view, zoomed in view, detail, even more zoomed in view. So we can get a good sense of what's happening in these drawings. So I can click on call out again, rectangle. Here is going to be a detail. And for example, if I want to show how the parapet works, right, I hover over the parapet, create a call out, click, and there is a detail. It can be a detail of the top of my wall, right? In this set of drawings, right, the difference between the two drawings you can really see. Here's a building section. You see these call outs, right? And then we move to the wall section, which is here, right? We're seeing more annotation. So this was the call out. We're seeing more detail, more keynotes, more explanation, all that good stuff, right? And then we have a detail call out here, 2 on A701. Where's 2? 1, 2. Then there's our detail view where we get even closer and start seeing other things, right? So that's going to be the difference between the 3 different drawings. Again, I can turn off my crop region, right? This is likely going to be, 1 inch is equal to a foot or even smaller in scale, right? But everything looks really good. I've got one little data marker, which is probably pretty appropriate, okay? I go to my building section sheet, building section, wall section, and now I have a detail view over here. I can drag my detail over here, and there's my detail view, right? So Those are the 3 different, drawings that we can create. And these are you'll hear this, create a call out, on the drawing. Or will you do a, create a building, a wall section? Yeah, great. Will you create a detail or call out a detail? Or, you'll hear those types of things to create this type of information. Okay. Revit does have, let me go to this detail. I'm not going to rename it over here. I'm going to rename it over here. I click on the title. Okay. Here we go. And I changed it there, and it changed it there, right? All right. So I'm going to go back to my parapet detail here, and I'm going to look at it. And you notice that, we kind of very naturally terminate right here, like the wall stops. But over here, we have kind of a cutoff area, right? Where it looks, when we know it should extend further, but it doesn't because the view has been cut off, okay? What you can do here is you can add a break line. And was the break line in there? I thought, didn't you just download the break line? Did you do a break line in your... Maybe. Let me look here real quick. Hold on. No. Okay. Huh? No, I thought you'd had put a break line for something, but maybe not. To create a break line in here that sort of shows that your drawing is stopping, let me show you how to do that. I'm trying to find one over here on the drawings, but it doesn't look like they put very many break lines in their projects. Anyway. All right, so if I go to Insert and I go to Load Family, I can go to Detail Items, General, Break Line. Yeah? Okay, I thought you may have. Hit Open, and I just loaded a break line, right? So let me just explain the idea behind a detail item, right? If you look at this right here, we see very fundamental striations that show floor, wall, gypsum board, right? And what we really want to see on here is all of this information, right? We want to see the wood on top of the parapet that they're going to nail to. We want to see the anchor bolt. We want to see the parapet cap. We want to see the insulation. We want to see the B deck, and we want to see how that, sits on the top of the concrete CMU wall, right? We want to see the rain gutter here and how, the drip edge allows water to drip down into there, right? All of these items that we see here are going to be either detail lines or detail items, okay? So we don't have a lot of time to actually use them. Yep.
And what under detail items was that listed under again?
It was under, let's look, detail items, general. Okay. But what you're going to notice here is I have things like masonry or wood, right? And if I go in here and I go to wood framing, I've got, you see these detail components, right? Or if I go to like millwork, there's a, here's what plywood looks like in section view, right? Or glue laminated construction, like a glue lam beam. Hey, there's a detail component for a glue laminated beam, right? I'm going to choose the wood framing, and I'm going to choose the sectional view of this and hit open. We're going to choose all the 2x. There we go. And show you how these work. So the break line is a detail component. And to access my detail components, I'm going to go to Annotate. And I'm going to go to Component, Detail Component. And a little menu pops up with all my detail components. And if I choose break line, click. Okay, do you see I get this masked region almost, right? So I have the break line and then a masking region. I can move this around. I don't really need it at the top. I can drag it down and spacebar, and it covers that bottom edge and cleanly says, hey, there's more down there, but we're not showing it, and this symbol indicates that's happening, okay? I'm going to grab this and copy it, CO, spacebar, and just kind of drag it over the end of that, right? And if you wanted to be nice and neat and pretty, we could drag these pieces together. Okay. There are detail components for thousands of things in Revit. So any of this stuff that you see on these details, it's either a detail line or a detail component, right? So the insulation, the CMU block, how it looks cut, right? Because, whoops, in our drawing, we don't see the CMU block being cut. We don't see any of the studs. Any of the anchor bolts that you see, you know, all of that stuff is going to be detail components, right? These trusses are detail components. These beams are detail components, likely. So all of this extra detail you're seeing in here has been added in the form of detail components, okay? So if I wanted to, for example, put a wood stud in here, right? Which it's not a wood stud, I know that, but we're just gonna put one in. I'm gonna click on Annotate, Component, Detail Component, look for my stud over here, 2x4, click space bar to flip it and place that 2x4 stud, right? I can move it around, I can do whatever I want. Another detail component that is not within the actual component command is insulation. So insulation, click. I can type in the width of the insulation, like 3.5 inches. Click, click, right? Is that Corey that did that? I knew it. I was just about to say, Corey, this is going to be amazing for you after AutoCAD. You just want to insulate everything all day long, right? Why wouldn't we want to insulate everything? Because it's just really easy. It's what's called a line-based detail component, right? And it just generates bad insulation, essentially, which in AutoCAD, this is a lot harder to do, right? And it's not easy to draw in AutoCAD either, so that kind of makes it a pain in the neck. So this is pretty fantastic for Revit. But to get that detail level, you will add detail components, right? So when people say Revit is so fast and it's so fantastic and I love it so much, which I do, don't get me wrong, I don't really know if Revit is so much faster because you still have to detail items out like this, right? And it's not like AutoCAD where I draw a rectangle and I draw 2 diagonal lines to create a stud, right? I have to go to find this stud. I have to hit component, detail component. I have to search for it. And if I don't search for it and I can't find it, I have to go load it and then I have to put it in the file, right? So there's kind of a trade-off in time, I guess, right? This seems quicker, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it really is at all. It's just different, right? Okay. I can also use detail lines to add detail in here, right? And this is somewhat going back to AutoCAD where we just have dumb lines that don't have any information associated with them to generate, you know, something on the screen or to represent something on the screen. So, you know, I could come up here and under Annotate, I have detail lines, DL, click. I have about 6 or 7 different line types I can choose from. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I can choose heavy, medium, thin lines, or dashed, or demo, or beyond. If I choose medium, right, I can say, oh, you know, here's my little parapet cap. Right? And so I can kind of illustrate that object using a detail line. So if there's something, you know, in your floor plan, elevation, section, anywhere in Revit, these can be used in any view, anywhere in Revit, on anything at any time, right? You can draw it in using a detail line. The great thing about detail lines is that they only show up in the view that you draw them in. So if I draw this parapet cap here, I can only find those lines here, right? That's good in that it doesn't interfere with any of my other views. Jameson's out sick today.
He's out today?
Yeah.
Just when you have a minute, could you let me into the 409?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, hold on one second, guys. So these detail lines can be added in any view and they only show up in that view, which is great because they don't interfere with anything. But the bad thing about it is that if you need to use the same lines in multiple places, it gets a little bit tricky, right? So, so just know that you can use these lines anywhere to supplement your drawings. All right. So we know how to create sections. We know how to create call outs on sections. You know, I kind of introduced a new topic, which is, I think, just something extra maybe because we're not going to be able to work with it, but detail components and detail lines, you know what they are. So, you know, if you move forward with this software and you use it, at least you know, hey, there are these things out there that I can use. I may not be a pro at them, but I have them kind of in my library, right? All right. Let's talk about now, so sections, wall sections, oh, call outs. I want to show you one more thing about call outs just to remind you. I'm going to go to my main level. Number one, when you print your drawings, don't print them in shaded view like this. Always change this to hidden line, right? I only show the shaded views when I'm drawing so that I can visually see differences, right? We don't want to print in shaded view. But one thing about callouts, you know, again, I said it before, but I think sometimes you just have to see it. You can use them in any view, right? And they sort of tune themselves toward any view. Meaning in a sectional view, I can create a wall section, and then I can call out, I can create an overall building section. I can call out a wall section. And then on the wall section, I can call out a detail, right? Those are call outs. On a floor plan, I can call out an enlarged floor plan. And I can also call out detail plan views. Okay, so I can go to view, call out, and if I wanted to create an enlarged view of like the women's room, right? Click, click, that's a call out for an enlarged floor plan. Click, click, there it is, right? In a bigger view or larger scale. And you can kind of, you know, change the boundary however you want it to look. Right? You can change the scale. So this is a 1/2 inch, which is going to be very much larger than, or larger in viewing it, I guess I should say, than the 1/4 inch floor plan, right? But the thing about this is that, you know, I've created this, and under floor plan now, what is this called? Detail 0. Oh, I think, nope, okay. So I did something different. I wasn't paying attention. When I created my call out, I had detail chosen, right? So it created a detail, essentially. Let's see. So when I'm in my floor plan, you can choose to have a floor plan, or you can have a detail, right? And what I want to do with a floor plan, you know, I'm going to delete this. I want a floor plan if I'm creating an enlarged floor plan, right? So that it somewhat schedules with the floor plans. So there we go. Things that you are going to want to create enlarged floor plans are going to be things that have life safety issues associated with them, and also accessibility, right? So oh, hi David. So things like restrooms, right? They're a big accessibility item. And so you will create enlarged floor plans to show that you comply with accessibility, right? Stairs, you'll have enlarged floor plans of stairs to show accessibility and egress. You will show, those are kind of the two main in our project, I guess I would say. But that's what an enlarged floor plan's going to do. It's going to show, you know, life safety and accessibility issues. So I click, here's my enlarged floor plan. Just like our building sections, right, which were cut through our floor plan, this room still has all the same associations that the floor plan has, or definitions that the floor plan has. Meaning I can come into my architecture tab, click on room, or not room, but room tag, and I can tag that room, right? Because that room is defined in my floor plan. And it doesn't go away just because I view my floor plan at a slightly larger scale, right? It's still there. And so I can click and I can add room names. I can go to tag, and I can tag things like doors, right? Click. all of these same definitions are there. So it's just a matter of tagging them, not redefining them. Okay, so I have my enlarged floor plan. Let me turn off my crop region. Okay, and I'm going to go to my main level floor plan here. It's filling the sheet pretty well, so I'm going to create a new sheet. And I'm going to call this AE 401. Okay, and I'm going to drag my enlarged floor plan onto that, which is this one right here, call out. I'm going to right click and rename it and call it enlarged restroom plan. Grab it, drag it over, click, there it is. Okay. Now, you can annotate and add text and all that good stuff to this. You can also add break lines, right? So if I wanted to illustrate that there was kind of a, it was terminating here and I wanted to have a nice clean edge instead of all of these things just kind of ending in space, I could go to component, detail component, find my break line, click and place it, drag that out. I can even drag out the masking area and it kind of nicely ends it. If I want to make the arrow larger, right, the arrow on my break line, I can click on it and I can use these little grips. Oop, it's getting larger. There we go. And I can use this little grip like, whoop, there we go. That's kind of how I want it, right? I can also click on it and change those things over here as well. I can CO, copy, click, click, space bar, drag it over to there, pull this out or move it down a little bit, right? There we go. CO, copy, click, click, space bar, move it down to there. Okay. All right, now if I wanted to, just like the section, I could further detail this, right? So for example, if, somebody's wondering about how to detail this condition right here where there's a framed wall that meets a CMU wall, right? I could come and go to my view, call out, rectangle. This is definitely a detail. It's not going to be an enlarged floor plan. And I can circle that plan detail that needs to be created, right? I click on it, and there's my detail in a larger view, right? I could add break lines all the way around it, and I could add detail components here to make it look more like a complete detail, okay? I am going to call this one plan detail. All right, so here's my enlarged floor plan, right? Which if we look at our larger floor plan, of course, that's bigger. We see the call out happening on the floor plan. So I can add a lot more detail to this and make it, easier to read. And then I can grab my plan detail, drag that over, right? And I can start adding details all around my sheet. In fact, this is kind of small still, I think. I'm going to change the scale. There we go. That's maybe about how I want to see my detail view. Okay. You can add detail lines to this. You can add detail components. You can turn off the, the shading, the hatch if you want to, all through visual graphics or overriding it. But that's how you're going to create the view. And I see that detail being called out right there on my enlarged floor plan. Okay. Another thing I can do on my enlarged floor plan, right? So very frequently stairs are an enlarged floor plan, right? And well, let me go to the stairs actually. I can create another enlarged floor plan, view, call out, rectangle. Okay, there's another enlarged floor plan. Click, click. It's my stairs, it looks good, right? You can turn information on and off, right? If I don't want to see my sections, I can right click and hide in view elements, right? So I'm just seeing kind of this information. Again, I can go to annotate and tag things like doors, right? Windows, whatever I want. I can define rooms, so architecture, tag room, custodial. Stairs, we don't have a room defined, but you could do that if you needed to. I can turn off my crop region. I can add, you know, break lines around this to make it look great, whatever I want to do. I can also, if I want to in this view, I can add alternate sections, right? So, you know, in my overall building section, I saw the entire building in sectional view. But what if I just want to see my stairs in sectional view, right? I could go to my section tool. I've got well, it's probably a detail view, that's right. And I can drag a section through my stair that way. Click, click. There's my stair section right there, right? And if I wanted to, I could click on section again, and I could hit my stair. Maybe I wanted to see the landing, right? Click, click. Oops. And I have to pull my crop region up a little bit, right? But there's my landing, okay? So, you know, Revit has kind of this way of allowing you to pretty easily zoom in to these different areas that need details without having to generate any extra geometry, right? Which is pretty nice. Turn off my crop region, add detail components, add text, whatever I need to add to make it look better. Now, my entire stair is not showing here. Kind of weird. Let's look at our view range. I'm not seeing it here. Where is it? Let's see. No. That's weird. Hold on a second. Let's see. Well, it still should show the entire. I'm going to delete this real quick. Delete. Call out. I want a floor plan. I think I did the same thing I did last time. There we go. Okay. So I think maybe it looked like with the detail view, it wasn't allowing it to read like a floor plan. There we go. So this is somewhat more of what I was kind of looking for, right? And I don't need to change my view range here, right? But there's my stairway. So now what's nice about this is that I've got these details and I can start to, just like I did with my overall building section, right? I was able to zoom in and add detail to different things. I'm allowed now to do kind of the same thing with my stairs and bathroom and whatever, you know, whatever else, okay? And these enlarged floor plans can go on, where's our enlarged floor plan sheet? We've got 401, enlarged floor plan, right? Oh, I'm starting to see things here that maybe I don't want to see, so click, click, tab, click, right click, hide in view, elements, right click, deactivate view. Okay, so I saw something I didn't want there, I changed it. I'm going to grab my stair section, or stair call out, which is this one, right click, rename. Probably enlarged stair plan, right? And you'll do a lot of this at the very beginning of a project, honestly. You'll come in and you'll just start creating drawings like crazy, right? You'll model it and then you're creating enlarged floor plans, building sections, call outs, and you're placing them all on sheets so that, you know, you're almost generating a cartoon set so that then people that are helping you on the project, you know, they know what you want detailed. They know what views you need, and they can come in and just annotate after you have sort of generated everything that you need here. Okay, so, you know, now, like for the, let's see what this one is. This is the stair section, right click, rename, stair section 1, and we have rename, stair section 2, right? So then I can pull those stair sections over, you know, if I wanted to on the same sheet as my enlarged floor plan, which, you know, that's not uncommon. You will see the stair plan and sections on the same page. I'm moving these over just a little. Hopefully I'll have enough room. But stair section 1, oop, I double clicked. It's a little bit large. So maybe these all need to be on same sheets, or on different sheets, but you guys get the idea. Maybe this needs to be a smaller scale. Instead of 1/2 inch, maybe it's, you know, 1/4 inch. Right, and that looks pretty good. Hi, David. And we've got our stair section number 2, right? Click, click. 1/4 inch. And I'm just gonna, not do that. I'm gonna drag that one also over onto my sheet, right? So again, I'm really pretty able to generate drawings very quickly in Revit. They may not totally be complete. There's not a lot of detail to them, but you can generate drawings pretty quick, right? And just to remind you about the kind of the terminology used, right? If I go to my main level, here's my main level plan. This is an enlarged floor plan of the stairs. You'll hear the term call out, right? But essentially it's taking a view of that floor plan and allowing you to change the scale or to add more information to it, right? Which is what I want to do now, right? I've created this enlarged floor plan to add additional detail to it. So how do I add additional detail, right? Well, I can add all of the same dimensions and things to this floor plan that I could to any other floor plan, right? And to remind you, our dimensions are located under Annotate. I prefer using the Align dimension. The shortcut is DI. Click. And I can come in here and I can tab and I can, you know, dimension this. Tab, click, right? I'm hitting some of these things that tab, click, need to be dimensioned, right? And I can tab, click, maybe I hit the sink and then the toilet, right? But essentially there are my dimensions, right? One thing about dimensions, you know, there's a very gentle balance that you want to maintain. You don't want too many dimensions to clutter up your drawings, but you don't want too few where they don't make, you know, you don't get the information you need. Another thing about dimensions is that, you know, pull them out. Oop, that's too far. Pull them out slightly away from your floor plan, right? We want our floor plan to be able to breathe and not look too crowded, right? Look slightly crowded. So I'm going to grab my dimensions and I'm going to drag them out a little bit. Do you see how that disappeared? Right, my dimensions disappeared. If that's happened to you, what is going on there is we have an annotation crop that happens. It's this dash line. And that essentially will say, if you have dimensions that go past this line, we're not going to show them because they may interfere with the detail next to the one you're drawing. That's annotation crop right there. So I'm going to uncheck that and my dimensions come back. Okay. You know, we probably want to have some overall dimensions, right? Stack them one. We'll do this here just for fun, right? But we're going to use our dimension tool to achieve those, okay? Again, under Annotate, and you choose whatever dimension you need, okay? If we want to add a little bit of more annotation, meaning, you know, text with using a leader, right? We're not quite going to get into keynotes. It's a little bit of a complicated topic, but we will get into, hey, I want to call a few things out. I want to call out the toilet. I want to call out the sink. I want to, you know, call out some things. How do I do that, right? Well, we're going to use the text option here, okay? And we're going to use leaders to do that. So I can click on text. And you're going to define what kind of text you want to use. Do you want plain text? No leader, right? Okay. Click and close, restroom. Do I want text with a straight leader, one segment? Click, 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 close. Okay, so that doesn't have any ability to bend. Do I want a leader with two segments where I can go click, click, right? And I can grab that and move it and point to whatever I want to point to. Or do I want to have a curved leader? Click, click, close. This can somewhat do whatever you want it to do, right? So probably the most likely one you'll use is this, right? Which is the, well, sorry, let me, before I define that, I can click on this. This is magical too. AutoCAD is just not this easy, right? But I can click on add a leader and it adds a second leader. Oh, let's add another one. Click, right? And I can point to things. The most common one you'll likely use is going to be this option, 2 segments, click. You know, and I'm going to point to things like the toilet, close, the sink, close, right? So just calling out a few different things here, right, is pretty helpful. 2 things. How do we change the text size? And then how, you know, I don't really like this little arrow that's open like that. Let me change it to a closed filled arrow. I can click on my text. I can hit edit type. And you see I have a leader arrowhead. It's an arrow that's 30 degrees. Well, I want that to be a filled arrow that's 20 degrees or whatever. Hit OK. And it changes all of those to a different arrow type. Also, if I grab this text, you see I have a 1/4 inch Arial chosen. I can drop down and choose 3/32 Arial and it changes it, right? We've talked about this a little bit. I can hit edit type, duplicate, and say something like, you know, 1/8 inch Calibri. Hit OK. And here I can change the text font to Calibri. And I can make the text size here 1/8. Okay. And now that is 1/8 inch Calibri. Now, this is a different type of text, and so my leader looks different. My leader here is associated with my text style. So I'd have to, you know, if I wanted to use this text from now on, I'd have to hit edit type and change this from that arrow, I should have done it in the first place, to that arrow. Hit OK. And there's my little piece of text, okay? You can copy these. I can grab on, I can type CO, click, click, copy them, right? I can click on this, and if I use this little gripper and hold down, you notice that that blue line pops up. That's an alignment line. So when I hover and I get that blue alignment line and let go, these all line up very nicely, which we like to see on our drawings, right? I can click on this and I can grab that little grip at the end of my arrow and drag it to point to what things I want to see being pointed to, right? So when you see things like call out a few different items on the floor plan using text in the leader, this is what I mean, right? So you call out the sink, you call out the toilet, right? You call out the door maybe, or, you know, if there's a piece of equipment, call that out, right? If you're on a plan view detail, click, click. You know, you'll be calling out, you know, more detailed items like, we'll change to our Calibri. You know, maybe you're calling out wall types or something like, you know, will be very generic. 8 inch CMU wall, close, right? Oh, my annotation cropped it out, so I'm gonna have to turn off my annotation crop. Now when I look at my sheet, right, enlarged floor plans, I see all these things on my sheets. I see that this is overlapping that and I have to move this over a little bit, right? So you want to keep that in mind, of course. Maybe both of these things kind of move over because they are starting to encroach into my title block. But we want things lined up. We want them looking good on the sheet. We don't want them interfering with, you know, other pieces of annotation, so we'll move that down. Oh. That's weird. Oh, I was already out of it. Okay. But that's what the annotation is going to be, right? You're going to call out things that, you know, I mean, we all look at this and say, that's a toilet. Okay, it's very clearly a toilet. But there are going to be things in the drawings where you're like, what is that? I don't know what they're calling out. Or, you know, there's special equipment, or there's clearances, or there's other, just, you know, where's the water heater? Where's the furnace? Where's the stair railing? Where are the stairs? Where's the millwork? Where's the island? Where's the kitchen sink? Where's the stove? Where's the mechanical hood over the stove, right? So you'll be calling out several things within your drawings just to define them for the contractor, essentially, right? Okay. Any questions on any of this so far? creating sections, adding callouts to sections and detail callouts. Yep.
I had a question on how, on the tag, like when you're tagging something.
Uh-huh.
When I tag the curtain wall, it gives me question marks. The door and the curtain wall.
Okay, okay. So let's look at, so curtain wall, again, I think we've all sort of figured out curtain wall is its own little beast, right? Curtain wall is kind of strange. Let me do this. So I'm going to go to architecture, or actually I'm going to go to annotate, and I'm going to go to tag. And when I hover over the door, right, I hover over the door, click, it gives me a question mark. It gives me a question mark because that storefront door doesn't have a number associated with it, right? Doors that are regular quote doors, right, inside the project will number themselves. So they'll sequentially number themselves. A storefront door will not do that. And so what you need to do is you need to click on that tag, click on it again, and give it a number, like 10. Another interesting thing, so you're looking at this saying, oh, that's a window, right? I'm going to tag it like a window. Well, storefront is not considered a window. It's actually considered a wall type. And so it doesn't tag like a normal window in a project. So, just so you know, essentially.
Do you tag it as a wall type then?
I have a little, well, so no, that's a bigger discussion, right? It's a bigger discussion. Anyway, so just know that you're not gonna be able to tag your storefront as a window. It's gonna be a wall type, but I'm not gonna make you tag those as wall types. Don't worry about it. Yep, you're good. That's okay.
On dimensioning, how many interior dimensions do you have?
Right. So general convention for dimensioning, right? And I say this very light, or I'm just going to say it, but I hate to say it because people never follow dimensioning conventions in real life, right? Everybody likes their dimensions different. So generally, when you are dimensioning, right, we're going to probably dimension the grids because that makes sense, right? That's going to be, well, maybe your first actually general dimension will be your overall dimension. So we want to know how big the project is, number one, right? So we have our overall, we have our grids dimensioned. The next thing we're going to dimension is changes in plane. So if this project jogged out, came over, went back down, and then went over, we'd have our overall, our grids, we'd have a change in plane, and then we'd have interior or openings on the exterior wall dimensioned, okay? So if I, for example, had a couple of windows here, okay, I would dimension those things. So DI dimension, and I would dimension likely from a grid, so it makes sense to, some people like it to center line, some people like it to one side or the other, some people like the opening, some people like, it depends on sometimes the construction of the wall, but, certain people like certain ways. So we're just going to do it this way. But then you're going to grab all of sort of these type of things, right? So from a grid line, you are going to grab the openings, whether it be doors or windows or storefront or whatever on the outside wall, and then interior partitions that kind of hit that exterior wall, okay? So overall, grids, exterior elements, okay? If you have a jog in your building, that will be dimensioned. And then as far as interiors, I want to keep it very simple, right? So I'm going to take a grid line, and I'm going to make this quick, right? But I'm just going to dimension, things very simply. These will likely run through the middle because we don't want to interfere with dimensions out here. But just keep it very, very simple, honestly. I'm going to go from this grid line. On this interior stuff, I don't go all the way across unless I absolutely need to, right? But I am just looking at this saying, hey, where do these items fall within the scheme of things? We have some weird increments, right? We can change that, but just very, very simple dimensions. No, just very simple, yeah. Yep. If you want to change the rounding on your dimensions, you see how that says 7/8 of an inch? We don't want 7/8 of an inch increment. You can type, and this will be on the video if you forget, but UN, units, UN. And this will universally through the whole project in Revit will change your unit rounding. So instead of to the nearest 32nd, we want it maybe to be to the nearest 1/4 inch. and that will change it.
So if I change that right now, look for the rest of it, right?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So we have dimensions, right? You're going to add dimensions and tags. You'll add some leaders, right, with text to describe a few things. The question Corey had was, hey, how do I do my cover sheet, right? I don't quite know how to do that. Well, let's add a cover sheet. Right click, new sheet. Here is my cover sheet. It's just a blank sheet. I'm going to call it GI001 cover sheet. Looks pretty good, right? So things that are going to go on the cover sheet, you know, this is generally an informational sheet. So professionally, you're going to have a vicinity map where the project's located. You're going to show all of the consultants and the designer on the project. You are going to their contact information. You're going to show maybe a little 3D image of your project, right? You're going to have a code review and a sheet index, right? The sheet index, we did that on Monday. That was a schedule. Ooh, I didn't save this. No, sorry, different class. Never mind. Okay, I'll just show you. It'll be on the video, so without a whole lot of explanation on schedules, right click, new sheet list. And here we're going to go down and choose the sheet name, add it, and the sheet number, add it. This will be on the video, and hit OK. And look what that does. Oh, but they're reversed. Sorry. Let me undo that. New sheet list, sheet number first, and then sheet name. Okay. And so what that did is it made a list of all of the different sheets in your project with their names associated. Another magical thing about Revit that AutoCAD should, I guess you can do this in AutoCAD, it's just not as easy. I'm going to close out of that, and you'll notice under schedules that appears, sheet list. I drag it over, I drop it, and there's my little sheet list, right? Oop. Looks pretty good. You want to put a view of your project, so a 3D view, right? I can go into 3D, click. I'm going to turn my section box off. I'm going to click on this little, you know, hey, there's a good view of my wireless switch. I'm going to right click and choose duplicate view with detailing. This is a pretty good review of a lot of things we've done here. And I'm going to drag this 3D copy over onto my cover sheet, right? So we've got a nice little rendering of the project. You'll make it look nicer, of course, right? If I wanted to add contact information for my consultants, the engineers and people who are working on it, right? I'm just going to use text. It's just as easy as that, right? I can go to text, right? And click on text, draw a little text region and say, you know, maybe, and you might have to use a couple different types of text to make it look the way you want it to look, but you could say, you know, who's the architect, right? Who is the right? So I could add those titles, and these kind of are small, so I'm going to maybe make them a 1/4" Arial instead, okay? And then maybe what you could do is add some more text, and under here, we'll do that, right? Hit close, and then you're just kind of building it in text, essentially, right? If you wanted to add some lines that kind of divide this page up to make it look different, right? So if we look at, for example, this one, they don't have any lines, I guess, but they have a title, the name of it, they've got all of the people who are doing their work. This is all just text, right? This is just text. This is just text. These are schedules, right? So the list of drawings down here. But really, this is just text, right? And they are taking this and saying, hey, maybe I don't want a 1/4 inch Arial. Edit type, duplicate. Maybe we want 1/2 inch Arial. So it's even larger text, right? And then the contact information, you know, I'm going to MV move it, right? And you can create text below each of these. Or if you wanted to do, you know, how this project is done, where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 6 different, you know, you could do 6 different little areas like that, right? No, just one. It's good, it's good. If you want to add some designations, right? So if you wanted to add a title, like, you know, over here you wanted to say this is the 3D view. Tiny little title, so I'm going to change the text to 1/2 inch Arial. And then I'm going to use a detail line, which is under annotate, detail line. And I could draw a little line under it.
Set the viewport to a type without a title.
Oh, tricky.
I couldn't figure that out.
Okay. Let me show you that in a second. CO, copy. I could copy this up, right? And I could call this right? So you can start adding text and detail lines to make it look however you want it to look, okay? All right, so if you know, this view right here says 3D copy 1. I could change the name to have it say something different, like 3D perspective drawing, right? If I don't want to have a title under it, there is a way that I can set my viewport type to not have that. Click on my viewport, and I have to do this on the sheet. Edit type, duplicate, and no viewport. And where it says title, view title, I'm going to choose none. And where it says show extension line, I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to hit OK. And now that viewport doesn't have a title associated with that, right? So how does that work? I click on it, drop down, viewport. Click on it, drop down, no viewport. And the difference is, edit type, this is unchecked, and that is set to none. I guess I should say show title, no. That's fine. Right? So you'll just design this title sheet however you want it to look. You can Google, you know, architectural cover sheet, and it will show you some different designs. But really, it's as simple as, you know, adding text, using detail lines, right? And making it look the way you want it to look, essentially. Okay. Any other questions? Feel pretty good about things? Yep.
The floor plans and elevations will be the same scale.
Yeah.
Make it look even.
Well, let me say this. I'm going to leave it up to you. If you feel like your floor plan needs to be a little, I feel like, you know, in general, when I look at this, I think this is, you know, whoops, sorry. When I look at this main level floor plan, I think that's a pretty good size for a floor plan, right? It's big enough that, you know, I have enough detail. It's not too big where it doesn't fit on the sheet, right? But my elevations that we tried to fit on one page at what was this, 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch, were too big. I couldn't fit both on one page. And if I made one smaller, or, you know, I guess essentially I don't want to have one elevation that's like kind of small on a page, but I don't want to have two that are slightly too large for one page. So I think in my mind, we're just going to have to make the elevations 1/4 inch. I'm going to leave it up to you to kind of make the final decision.
Separate sheets then.
Yeah,
With that.
yeah, you'd have to,
Sections also.
yeah, with the sections also. But I kind of think for what we're doing here, I think it's okay. Like maybe keep the floor plans and RCPs larger, but then do the elevations slightly smaller like they did in the set, right? So we could do a few on each page. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions? Yep. Okay, hold on one second. What was- So you just click on it once. Yep. And then all of your, that's probably your problem. So then you're gonna, you know, I have no viewport chosen, it goes away, and that's because it's defined as none, no, and unchecked. Did that work? If you engage it, double click, it won't work. You just have to click on it one time.
I'm not getting, when I go to the edit type properties, it's not giving me that.
Okay, hit escape. Click on it once. Hit edit type. Duplicate.
Yeah, I can go to no view.
Okay, so you've clicked on this and you've chosen none. You've unchecked this.
Oh wait, go back one.
Go back one what?
I don't have that.
You do. Click over here.
Yeah, you did. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, well, that's because you're in the view, right? You're in the actual view. So if you double click out. So now click one time and you can edit
Alright.
yeah, you're in the viewport. But if you do it for this one, you have to duplicate it because if you do that, it will change all of them.
I did duplicate it.
Oh, you did?
Oh, you're right.
No? Okay. Didn't think so.
I did it before.
Okay, Anna had another question.
I have a question about the tabs up top in your file.
Uh-huh.
Go to tabs.
Tabs.
How do you get them to branch out or to branch out?
These up here.
Yeah.
So this little guy right here. Click. 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 Yep. Anything else? And if you have questions, I'll be here, right? I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here. I won't be here Friday, but I'll be here Monday. And you guys, you know, so.
We're allowed to work on this on Monday too.
What time do I have? Well, you have to have it turned in by before I leave the print. But you can post it later in the day if you want. Yeah. Touching on the floor there. You're probably gonna have to, and draw a little section right there. Okay, so what you could do is you could bring it up and you could jog it out if you wanted.
Gotcha, so
Just
that
right
can
there.
kind of follow the bottom of the
Right,
servers,
right,
essentially.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
And over here.
Yeah.
You wanna unlock this?
Oh, yep, yep. Oh, and I forgot to stop recording. Stop.